sometimes atheists will say that, or they'll quote Mark Twain in saying, believing is, or faith is just believing in what you know ain't so, or something to that effect.
I was going to say there are then secular definitions of faith which will kind of get weird. Some of them are like believing in something you know isn't true, the Twain one, or believing in something that's false. That's not what we mean by faith. That's a distortion of the concept. Another distortion is believing something contrary to evidence. That's not what we mean by faith either. Or
What would be
believing something.
What would be an example of that?
Well, you could say, and let me see if I can come up with a couple of examples here. You could say all of the evidence, like let's borrow an example from the philosopher William James. Let's suppose you're in a situation where you have to leap across a chasm or you're going to die. You're being pursued by evil cyborgs. They're going to kill you if you don't leap across this chasm. And the evidence may say, you don't have the ability to make this leap. The chasm's just too wide. But if you don't attempt, and if you don't talk yourself up into, I can do this, you'll definitely fail. So even though the evidence would suggest you can't leap across the chasm, you could still say, I'm going to take a leap of faith anyway. I'm going to assume I can, and I'm going to do this. That would be one example where even though the evidence seems to point one way, you could say, I'm going to choose to act on, I'm going to choose to believe the contrary. And James would say in certain specific situations that could be reasonable, like if you're being pursued by killer cyborgs. But in most situations, that's not what you want to do. You want to go with the evidence instead of contrary to the evidence informing your beliefs.
Okay.
Also, there's believing something without evidence. And there's an aspect, there's kind of a related usage that you do find in Scripture, because Scripture does say at one point that faith is the evidence of things not seen, and we walk by faith, not by sight, meaning there are certain things that we can't prove them for ourselves, but we accept them anyway. I would say that's not really, in the biblical sense, that's not believing without evidence. That's believing without the ability to prove it personally. We still have good evidence that these things are true because they're revealed to us by God. And this gets us to a very interesting understanding of faith that is shared in a way by every human being. Because most of the things that we believe, this is something C.S. Lewis talks about in his book, Mere Christianity. Most of the things that we believe are not things we can prove ourselves. I believe in electrons. They're what's used in electronics, which is how we're talking to each other right now via electronics. But I can't prove the existence of electrons. I don't know how to run those experiments. I'm believing the scientists who do understand those things and who can prove them. And everybody, for most of the things we believe are not things we've proved ourselves. So most of our actual knowledge is something we take on faith, in the sense of I haven't proved it for myself, but I have evidence from experts that I trust, that lead me to believe it's true. And so once you recognize that principle, you can extend it a little further. And some years ago in, doing apologetics, I imagined, suppose I was blind. Well, if I was blind, blind from birth, I'd never seen anything, I could verify certain things about the world, by touching them and tasting them and things like that. But and I could even notice things like, hey, it's warmer for part of the day than another part of the day. It's like 12 hours, it's warmer, 12 hours, it's cooler. Why is that? Well, just relying on my own four senses, since I don't have sight, I could never realize the true explanation for that. But if I talked to someone who was sighted, who could see this other aspect of reality that I can't with my senses, that sighted person could tell me, oh, the reason that it's warmer half the day is because there's this thing up in the sky. It's shaped like a disc. It's called the sun. It's really bright. It looks yellow. The sky also looks like a big field of blue. and he would be telling me the truth. And if I have reason to believe the sighted person, he could give me evidence that he is sighted. I could say, how many fingers am I holding up? And I could tell if he's touching my hand to figure out how many fingers. And if I don't feel him and he says you're holding up 4, that would give me evidence he has this magical sense called sight. And once I have reason to believe that he has this magical sense called sight, that gives me evidence to trust him when he tells me things like there is a sun and it's bright and warm and yellow and it appears in the sky for half the day and the sky is blue normally. And so I could learn all of these things, even though I have no experience of yellow or bright or blue or the sun. I would have reason to believe these because I have reason to trust the sighted person who's telling me about them. So what if we expand it further to where we don't limit it to other human beings? What if an angel comes to me and the angel has additional awareness of other aspects of reality that the 5 senses don't reveal? Well, if the angel can do things that presuppose a deeper understanding of reality, like maybe heal somebody, on the spot, well, that would give me the evidence that the angel is really supernatural and is aware of things supernaturally that I'm not naturally aware of, and that would give me reason to trust the angel with what the angel tells me, like there's a God in the sky and he's a trinity. Not literally in the sky, but using a metaphor. So actually everybody has faith in the sense of trusting and believing things they can't prove for themselves. That is most of human knowledge. And when we apply that principle to religion, we don't find a difference in kind. Now, of course, we're going to want to say, well, what are the evidences for a particular religion? Why should we accept its claims about the supernatural world, just like we would want to say, if we're blind, why should I trust this person who claims to, have sight? Well, we need evidence for that, and it's the job of apologetics to provide us with the evidence. But the principle is the same, that it can be rational with evidence to accept things you can't prove for yourself by learning them from someone who has an expanded form of awareness that is aware of them.
Thank you for watching this clip. You can click here to watch the full episode. And I want to say a big thanks to our sponsors and to our amazing patrons for making all of this possible. Please do us a favor before you go. Click that subscribe button and then the bell. And that way YouTube will be forced to let you know every time we put out a new episode.